Welcome to Burn the Ship. This is the podcast where we like to connect professionals to entrepreneurs and, help people go all in on their business. So You've walked the walk and you've talked the talk. So without further ado, let me introduce yourself, my friend.
Man, I'm a camera here. Greetings, everyone. My name is Lucien Wall. Acting right now is the Chief Operating Officer of the Labs, which is immersive web experiences company. We're all about creating immersive web experiences for brands, companies, wherever they are around the world, so companies can optimize their traction, conversions, things like that, especially from a marketing element. Prior to that, I've been working in entrepreneur. Well, I've been an entrepreneur for 2007, 2008 ish.
A serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, that was done by force because I had a gig. And I finished school. I was like, yes, I got it. And then the recession hit, and it just went away. So all of a sudden, I had to figure it out quick.
Okay. Absolutely.
And then I leveraged the skills that I had, and I know I had my business acumen. And at that point, I was doing a lot of stuff in the entertainment business. And I just leveraged, so we're just talking about studio production, things like that, which I knew how to do. And that created relationships and things like that, and also introduced my other business side of consulting. And it just went from there, and really just were able to nurture it from relationships, honestly.
Absolutely, I completely believe in that, brother. That's I'm in the sales world, so I know that.
Man.
Everything's on relationships and your network.
Absolutely.
Your network's only gonna be as big as your network.
Absolutely.
And I've heard that a ton, especially being out of school now. And I had professors, preach that down my throat. Network.
I literally had my class that I'm teaching right now. I literally told that to my students last week. Mm-hmm. He said, "You got to think about foresight," because everybody asks, okay, what should I major in? What should I do? I said, well, think about vision, what the vision is, and then reverse engineer the process.
Okay.
In a way, you kind of get a guidance to what you may want to do, but you can always change that because it's your decision. But to your point, with those relationships, you never know who you're going to meet along that path that you come across in the future. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've went to airports around the world, and I'm like, what are you doing here? And be for the same conference, or it might be an introduction to a colleague. It's crazy. It is all about nurturing relationships. And I'm me personally, I'm horrible with names, and that's bad because I'm do sales. Like, but a face I won't forget. Like I'm looking at you like,
absolutely, I know you. Yeah,
I know you. But the point is that even with that element, when you keep those relationships in line, a lot of times, especially with that strong rapport, it turns into other things or seeds that will manifest itself in the future, especially in that realm. So 100%. Very much, and I think that's part of the entrepreneurship thing was so important. And this is coming from an introvert. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Sometimes if I got to put on the sales hat and do it, I'm reluctantly like, okay.
I don't want to.
I don't want to do it, right? But but I realize that that's part of the deal. But
absolutely,
but at its core, if it was up to me, I'll stay in the house all day and just do what I want to do. But that's besides the point.
I think that's everybody.
Yeah, right. but to your point, that entrepreneurship element, relationships is so key. It really are.
For sure. Yeah. Relationships are. But all right, so I want to hear a story from you. So you said you came from school straight to the entrepreneur space.
Yeah.
You say you were forced.
We're forced.
Most people say they want to do it. They force themselves to do it. But I want to hear that story of what was your first venture that you paint the picture of how you got to where you are now.
So it all started in my teenage years. Disclose I'm in my mid-40s, right? So it's kind of showing my age. But when that happened, I've always delved into music.
Okay.
And that was just a hobby and turned into my best friend, like, hey, let's DJ some parties. Okay, cool. We did house parties. And then we went to college. Hey, let's do some more parties. Okay. Not realizing that it was a business model in itself. And then at that time, I was putting myself through school and, going through whatever. And I relocated to New York to finish school there. And then I was working corporate job while doing that at the same time. So I'm doing corporate stuff, and this itch is in the back of my head. It's like, you should still do this. And I started delving into that. And then I started to realize that, I had the skill sets that I'm learning in this corporate arena that I could apply to what I'm doing. And then I'll never forget it. I got an opportunity to replace my boss's boss. And you could picture going into a meeting. I thought, I got the call, hey, want to see you. Like, what did I do?
Yeah.
End of the year, right? Especially doing sales.
Anxiety was already up anyway.
I'll never forget it. I saw my boss's boss sitting here, and then my boss was in a just picture it, a conference room, and you know how those chairs are just spinning,
like a scene from Suits.
Yeah, like that. But my boss was just thinking around. I'm like, what? This is very weird. And turns around, they wanted to offer me their position. I was like, okay, this is great. And I thought about it, and then my heart was like, this is, if somebody's seeing your efforts to do this, what happens if you invest in yourself?
Right.
And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to do it.
That's dangerous.
And yeah, it is dangerous. It's very scary. But I went for it, and I said, this is what I saw. And then I finished. At that point, I was still going to school, but I went through that, and I was still doing in the business consulting space, really started to get in there. And then I realized I had a knack. I understand how to do business models. I understand how to do sales. I understand how to prospect. BDR is not an easy thing. Right? Mm-hmm. Business development is not easy, right? I knew how to do that. So I just kept going on that and then pushing a portion. And then when I got to the opportunity, when I was able to get a gig here in Atlanta, and then the recession hit, I kind of like, dang, there was a great opportunity, but I wouldn't say scared. It was more so say, all right, let me just shift gears and get my mind to it, to where I could do it, and then just got to it. And then after that, it was no turning back.
Yeah, people appreciate that, man. Yeah. That's a real story, and people can appreciate that because you got your entrepreneurs on on YouTube. I think we talked about this on the phone. You got your Gary V's, you got your other people. Yeah, why haven't you made $1 million yet? You suck.
Yeah,
like man, not everybody has that financial backing.
No, and you're right, and it's to Gary V's point, and folks like that, they have a process they've had time into. Gary Vee is a very interesting character too. Yeah, but everyone has their own journey. Everyone has their own race, right? I mean, if you doing your path, and I realized that early, it's like, I see my friends, I got, degreed up and stuff like that. Cool. But, interesting enough, that's 10 years ago. But now 10 years later, they're looking at me like, man, I wish I would have been on whatever you were doing. I appreciate now the risk that you took at that time. And that, like I said, that's what I said earlier, that wasn't more so like, oh man, I would like that comfort creation. That'd be great. Yeah. But it was something where I just had to shift gears and go.
You immediately jumped in the cold water. You said, screw it.
I just went. I mean, what am I going to lose, right?
Exactly.
I'm here now, so let's just see what happened. And then I realized that experience allowed me to position my skill set in a different stratosphere and go towards those opportunities with the abilities that I had, and to create a whole bunch of new things. And I was getting gigs to do, say, hey, can you do this? I just immediately said yes, and I'll figure it out in the back end. Yeah. My spirit was like, if I can figure this out, I have a feeling I can. I'll burn them in. I don't figure it out. Yeah. But I mean, from the other side to it is that I there's a level of integrity that I have there too. So I mean, there's plenty of times where people want to, hey, let's do this, and I'm like, I don't know. There's a reason why, and I'll say no, and the reason why I'll say no. I don't still say no, right? Or maybe the timing's not right, or there's a flaw in here, is not ready to do it, right? And it's more so because a lot of folks really don't want to jump in, to your point. But I believe that it's good to jump in there, but at least know what the hell's in the water, right? Okay. I don't, if you don't, okay, one thing to jump in, great, but you don't know what the heck's down there. Yeah, that's a different can of worms. So that's the element of risk that you're managing in the entrepreneurial space. And now I'm comfortable with it.
What was it that you did? What was it that made you? What made you succeed right at the beginning? What that you did really well? We all do things really bad and really good.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I am still trying to figure that out. Really? And here's what I mean by that, because you if you're going through the motions and you're doing well and stuff, all right, you're still moving on attraction, but sometimes you lose sight of how you get there. Right. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And when in answering your question, I think for me it's more so about, I hesitate to say old fashioned, but I go back to an element of integrity, especially with relationships. Like the straightforward things, like doing what you're going to say you're going to do, follow through. Follow up. I mean, Jesus, that's the big one, right? Yeah. The follow up, the follow through. And then also being of service. I think that's probably the main thing. I think is more so of me being, hey, how can I help you do this?
Absolutely, means the world.
And if paying me, that's great. But if I for me, I'm getting more out of if I've helped you get from point A to point B based on what I'm good at. then I'm grateful that I was able to help you.
Absolutely.
I'm also grateful that I was able to use my gift to help you. But then I also recognize that you're not going to be a calling card for somebody else. And I think, and in that process, I think those steps really got me through those times to where, you know, and I go back to a sales mechanism, especially if you're prospecting for new business. Sometimes that road is very lonely.
Oh yeah.
All right, and
the nose can turn you away real quick.
Oh, big time. And you know, and it's a lot of keeping your fishing rod in the pond and nothing bites, right? But you know you're in the right space. You know you're right space. So sometimes the timing's not right, or things like, or you're too early to the market.
Absolutely.
Right. So once you get that knowledge base and understand those things, you get that experience. You be able to still engage, but you have that knowledge to go with it differently. So I think that element of being a servant leader for those prospects, right, and being a resource to them continuously has allowed me a significant level of success for that.
Absolutely,
and I use that subjectively because success is subjective.
It's different to every person.
Exactly.
Your success is different than mine.
Precisely.
You're trying to attain something different than I'm trying to attain.
Yes.
But say we all three of us in the same room are trying to attain the same thing, then our success is
for
probably
sure.
going to be
There's
very
going to be an
similar,
alignment.
But like your background, his background, and my background are all going to be different.
Yes.
To where our successes are going to want to be. Because you know you could want $5 million a year. I could be successful with $50,000.
I hear you. Yeah.
Same thing. So
yeah.
I understand how that cookie crumbles. But no, that is, you know, that service is huge because that's what our company here is built on. Because that's what, you know, that's one of my biggest selling points. Once it goes to the last leg of where I'm going to go, look, we're going to give you incredible service. You have my number. What processor do you know that you have their number?
Yeah,
you know,
true.
and how do you know where you can get in contact with their customer service immediately? And it's a real person that will drive and help you. You can't, you know.
Yeah. I mean that in business that element will never go away.
No,
I don't. I mean, I just believe it won't go away because no matter how big of a business is, and I told about if that relationship element is key. Like case in my point for my business, like. I much rather have somebody who I can go to call at my bank. I much have somebody who I can pull up to my PR firm. Like those things are key because those relationships actually create new business
and create connections. And that network makes business because they're like, hey, do you know a guy that's in that world?
And what we're doing right now are as in an enterprise space. Our business is straight through referrals. It's a referral-based business.
Let's say 50% of ours is.
Yeah, so you understand, like,
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of that, once those referrals are there, I mean, from a sales standpoint, being selfish is kind of great because, okay, I don't have to do much weightlifting, right?
Yeah.
But the other side is that you at least know within the conversation with that prospect that, hey, awesome, you already understand the element of the value. Let me help service you with these elements to alleviate those pain points and be of service to you to make sure that the experience that you're getting with this product or service that I'm giving you is worth your while, and you'll be able to evangelize when you see fit. Because that's when somebody has a good experience with a product or service, they're going to talk.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's just human nature.
Always. They're going to tell their next person, their next best friend. They're going to tell them.
Did you hear about this? Did you get this? Absolutely.
Yes. And then the second question I had to ask you off of this is, what did you do real bad? What you go back and you're like, dude, I stunk at that when I started. What the hell was I doing?
Oh man, it has to be when I first started. It has to be that, you know, sometimes one thing I knew I was well at was I can find the ponds of the fish.
Okay.
But when I get the fish, I'm like, what do I say
with
with
it? Yeah.
Right. And I think that was my thing. It was like, hey, getting confidence to talk to these potential clients and say, here's what I can do. Like, I know I can help you, but I just can't articulate it properly. And
you knew more in the industry than they did. You just didn't.
Yeah.
You were thinking, you probably had imposter syndrome.
Yes.
I'm young and I go into a bunch of older merchants all the time. I'm 24 years old, so I walk in and I'm talking to 40, 50-year-olds all the time.
Right. And then you're like, what do you know?
They look at me like I'm a dumb.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Man.
No, and to your point, and that's very key too, because I've experienced that too. I mean, in corporate, when I was working in corporate, my first leadership job was 22, and I had people my reports to me that were 3-4 times my age. So that dynamic is crazy.
And they weren't even trying to respect you.
No,
at first.
but that's why I said that servant leadership is important, because I realized that if I'm able to help them. Right, the rapport grows, bigger
tremendously.
And to answer your question, I had to remember that when I was going through my own journey, because I was like, man, I know I can help you. I just don't know how to articulate that. So I really had to figure out my own way of doing it. And the way that worked well for me is if I see something to where I can help you, I just get it out. Like sometimes it would be, and you could probably understand this from a sales standpoint. It's like, hey, not only will I present you a proposal, but I already did a mock-up for you.
1,000%.
Right?
That's where I was at this morning before I got here.
So, like, because for me, if I visually see how I can help you, it's much easier for me to sell it to you. And I think as an entrepreneur, understanding what I can offer to them, that was where I had to get through. So I had to accept for me and my thought process, the best way I can serve others is to really showcase that. And at first, you know, when I thought about it, what other people say, no, you're giving too much and things like that. But for me, it wasn't. I just needed to get out my suit because for me as a person, it's just being of service once again. Absolutely. And that was valuable to me. So I think that's one of the things that I did really struggle with. But you know, I've gotten a lot better. I'll tell you that. Yeah. But I still got my hiccups. So I'm not gonna lie, because I mean, every time is a different issue. Like, okay, what do I do with this? And there's a little bit of imposter syndrome, no matter what the scale of the client is.
Yeah. And you don't know who you're talking to, you know, and you feel like they are. You know, as in that sales space, you kind of feel like they already know what they're talking about. When 9 out of 10 times they don't have a clue. No, they couldn't. If you told them the wall was green and it was blue, they'd believe it was green. You know, that 9 out of 10, the other person's gonna tell you it's red and it's blue.
Literally in their own space, and then the other side to that point is that the belief system in that own space is so strong, it creates such a barrier that potentially disconnect the whole process. When you're genuinely trying to, hey, yeah. You said you had this problem. I'm trying to help you.
Yep, exactly.
But okay, and
like I have a service that's going to help your business and help you. You know that I wouldn't sell it to you if I didn't think it was going to help you.
Right, exactly. My father, you know, when he had his business, I never forget, and this was a kind of connect to what you're saying too. Short story. He had an opportunity, and the dynamics. He was a trades. He was a pipe fitter. Okay. And he had his own business. You know, really grew up in his trades and living in New York City. And he got his business to the point through relationships, and he started his own business. And people knew him, hired him for the contracts, but he did the jobs so well that he was being recognized in the city. And he got a large contract that was citywide. Yeah. Did well with that. And then he
changed his life.
Yeah, it was significant. And I'll never forget it. I was with him. I was helping manage his business operation. I went with him, big old office, Manhattan. Said, here, Mr. Wall, here's your contract offer for you. And we were like, what? So looked at the contract. I always remember seeing there was a whole lot of zeros in there. Yeah. And then he looked at me and he was like, let me think about it. And that's something tell me to like, what just happened here? But he didn't take that because he knew he couldn't service it like he should. Right. So the idea is that, hey, even if you want me to do something with you, even if you believe in me as much, right? There might be things that you may be seeing that I don't, vice versa, that we have to manage that process and say, hey, this is great. Or even in the sales tactics, like, you know, if you know somebody wants to buy from you and you know they're not a good fit, right? You'll say, hey, this is cool, but this is maybe you might be thinking about because of ABC, which kind of sucks. But that goes a long way with the relationship, because now they trust you, although you've got in a situation
where you told them you couldn't help them, but they were asking for your service. Absolutely.
And then I can't tell you the amount of times, even when in that process,
that happened to me last week. I had a merchant that did about $280,000 a month. That'd have been about a $20,000 pay raise for me, and I was like, look, that's not going to be a solution that's going to benefit you. You do 400 transactions a month. And through the system you already have, I can't integrate to it. You're going to have to do a standalone. You're going to have to type it all in. Look, and that's, if you want to do it, you can do it. But I'm not going to, I'm not going to, you know, I can save you that $2,000. Is that going to be beneficial to you to go and redo all these invoices and all this payments that you're going to have to do? And they were like, fuck, I appreciate you telling us that. And I was like, well, look, anybody else would have just lied to you and sold it to you, and you'd have been contracted in with them for 5 years.
And that goes back to what we were just talking about. So, yeah, and it sounds like, you know, round the world there. But it definitely connects to what you're saying about that bad thing, because that was a learning experience to where I recognized I did that bad. And those experiences say, hey, even those situations when you're still going through that process of trying to figure out, this is what I don't do well. And sometimes I have to defer to other folks that I don't know the answer to. And I'm now more quick to say, give me a day, I'll get back to you. Mm-hmm. That I never used to do. Like, I'll figure it out right now or just come off the cuff. But now I'm more comfortable being patient and really thinking through and leveraging time for me. It's all about the follow-up.
That was super hard for me when I first started, especially because I didn't start here until August.
Okay.
So I've been in the sales world not too long. I was in the baseball world for a long time. I went to school to coach. I was actually going to go back and get my master's to coach. But I just thought about it. I was like, 5 years, no pay. Mom and dad are in sales. So And Big Boss is one of my dad's lifelong best friends.
Awesome. Okay.
So whenever I knew this gig, my dad's always told me, he's like, look, dude, if I could go back 20 years now, he's like, I would do that right there because it's a residual based income. He's in finance, so he's he's working 80 hours a fucking week minimum. So his life, I wouldn't say it's the best quality of life. Got a ton of money, but what's a ton of money if you ain't got no time? If you ain't got no time to enjoy it, exactly. Yeah. So I was like, it's a no brainer for me. But all right, now, last thing is, you know where the burn the ship came from? You know where the illusion?
No, tell me.
All right, so. Central American conquistador Hernan Cortez lands in Central America. This is Christopher Columbus time, a little after. But he had an armada of ships land there, and he made his men break down the ships, take off all their supplies, and break them all down. 10, 12 ships, however many it is, maybe 20 at that time. Break them down and burn them.
Why?
Because he was saying, we're going to make it work here, we're going to die trying. That's the same illusion that we use for entrepreneurs, as where we got to burn the ship.
I like that.
Catchy.
That's very catchy. I didn't know that. Yeah. I really like that. Yeah, I didn't know that.
CFO Chris came up with it one day when we were all sitting around. And he's like, man, burn the ship. And he told us a story. We're like, wait, that is great.
Man. Yep. I really like that. Right. And you know what? It's very relevant to what we're talking about here because, sometimes, in my case, I guess I was burning the ship.
Yeah, no, you did. No, you
right?
did. You burnt one,
big time. Like, we're gonna figure this thing out.
And you were about to get a big ship keys, and you burn it down.
Thinking about getting
I'm gonna hop on the John boat for a little bit.
And then I end up swimming in the water trying to figure out what the heck's going on.
And look at you now.
Yeah.
Do you think you'd ever be here?
I don't know. I think I would be. I believe that I have done very well with what I have gone through and my experiences. Now, I do recognize I missed opportunities, but I'm grateful to be where I am because I think, all those experiences happen for a reason. And I think now that I'm in an opportunity to give back through my knowledge base, through teaching, like we talked about earlier, and conversing with clients, I'm good with that personally. Yeah. If
you get more gratitude out of that,
I absolutely do.
It means a lot.
It really does. Like, especially if I'm sharing information, and especially when I'm teaching and showing somebody the understanding the process of the business model and connecting into sales and really connecting to what they want to do.
Right.
When I see the light bulb go off and they start asking questions,
it makes you you're smiling ear to ear.
At big time now I want to help you. And that's where that element comes into.
Versus being that one person that you can't see the light bulb going off. You're like, it's flickering.
Yeah, as you see it, but it takes time. But I think that's what element would drive me there. So I'm grateful for what I have.
Absolutely. And you want to tell the people where to find you?
Absolutely. I'm a LinkedIn person. You can search me on LinkedIn. Lucien Wall. I'm the dapper person with the suit on, not the hoodie. You could also find me on social media at my handles at TechMatrix Sounds, TekMatrixSounds. Not as active as I should, guilty, because I've been busy. But that's one of my New Year's things. I'm going to be more active on social. Okay. And I recognize I do that. My wife and I is like,
need help with the socials, you let us know. We do it well.
Okay.
We do it well.
Okay.
So, I appreciate you, my friend, and burn the ship.
Burn the ship, man.
Cool.